The millionaire mindset for a man with zero support begins when he stops treating belief as fuel. Belief is not fuel. Evidence is. You have been waiting for your family to understand, your friends to clap, or the world to notice your potential before you move with force. But Machiavelli's world does not reward potential. It rewards visible power. People update their judgment when ignoring you becomes costly. That is the mechanism. Unsupported men do not need more explanation. They need proof faster, discipline earlier, and leverage before comfort. If you keep waiting to be believed, you remain a theory people can dismiss without consequence. But the counter trap is bitterness. Do not become another silent man hiding behind resentment. Build measurable evidence, skill, money, reputation, results. Stop asking for support. Become the proof they cannot afford to deny. Howard Schultz spoke to 242 people while raising money for the coffee concept that became central to the Starbucks story. 217 said no. John Paul DeJoria started John Paul Mitchell Systems with about $700 and sold shampoo door to door. Forbes described him as briefly homeless, sleeping in an old Rolls Royce while pushing the product directly into salons. Understand what these examples reveal. They did not begin with belief. They began with rejection. They did not begin with applause. They began with pressure. They did not wait until the world gave them emotional permission. They created proof close to the ground. One investor conversation, one sale, one visible result, one signal at a time. So the question is not, why does nobody believe in me? The question is, what evidence would make disbelief irrational? That is where most unsupported men fail. They think their real problem is that nobody claps. But the deeper wound is worse. They still need applause to begin. They still need family approval before they move seriously. They still want friends to recognize their potential before they commit with force. They still want the world to confirm the identity they have not yet proven. And this is the brutal law underneath the entire game. The world does not respond to the man you believe you are. It responds to the man you can prove you are. Machiavelli understood this with a coldness modern men avoid. He wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are. That sentence is not poetry. It is a law of perception. People do not judge your private fire. They judge your visible signals. They do not reward the dream hidden inside your chest. They reward the evidence they can see, measure, use, fear losing, or profit from. This is especially brutal for the unsupported man, because he often believes he is more than the world has evidence to believe. He feels ambitious, but the world sees no assets. He feels intelligent, but the market sees no proof. He feels misunderstood, but his family sees no results. He feels destined for more, but his bank account, reputation, body, skill level, and output have not yet forced anyone to update their judgment. And that gap becomes dangerous. Because the longer you live with private ambition and public invisibility, the easier it becomes to turn lack of support into an identity. At first you say, I am building. Then you say, nobody supports me. Then you say it so often that it becomes the central story of your life. And once that happens, your wound begins to manage your future. You stop looking for proof. You start looking for sympathy. You stop building leverage. You start collecting emotional evidence that people failed you. And yes, maybe they did fail you. Maybe your family did not understand the road. Maybe your friends laughed when you should have been taken seriously. Maybe the people around you only respected conventional success. Maybe they called your ambition unrealistic because they could not imagine a life beyond their own limits. But none of that changes the law. No support is not proof that you cannot win. It is proof that you cannot afford to remain emotionally lazy. A man with support can sometimes move slowly. He can fall back on family money, inherited contacts, patient parents, social capital, or people willing to recommend him before he has earned much. But a man with zero support does not have that luxury. He has to become sharper earlier. He has to build evidence faster. He has to choose better. He has to protect his money harder. He has to learn the market sooner. He has to stop wasting energy explaining himself to people who have no incentive to understand him yet. This video is not here to comfort the unsupported man. It is here to convert him. There are 6 laws in this transformation. They move in order. First, you kill the permission reflex. Then you replace validation with evidence. Then you build a survival base. Then you choose one high leverage skill. Then you distribute your proof publicly. Then you turn reputation into leverage. The final law is where the game changes, because leverage is when the world begins moving toward you instead of you begging to be seen by the world. But you cannot reach leverage while still needing emotional permission. You cannot turn reputation into money if you have no visible proof. You cannot build proof if your daily life is leaking focus, cash, discipline, and attention. And you cannot build a survival base if you are still addicted to the image of success before the foundation of freedom. So we begin where the weak point begins. Law 1. Kill the permission reflex. The unsupported man's first weakness is not poverty. It is emotional dependence. That may sound insulting until you study your own behavior honestly. How many times have you explained your ambition to someone who did not understand the game? How many times have you defended your dream to people who judged your future through your past? How many times have you repeated the plan, not because they needed the information, but because you wanted them to say, "I see it, I believe you, you are not crazy"? That is the permission reflex. It hides underneath explanation. You explain the business. You explain the idea. You explain why you are different. You explain why the job is temporary. You explain why your current results do not represent your future. You explain why you need time. You explain why the world has not seen the real you yet. But beneath many explanations is a quiet request. Please tell me I am not crazy. That request makes you weak. Not because advice is wrong, not because feedback is wrong, not because every person around you is an enemy. The danger is more precise than that. You become weak when you give emotional authority to people who do not understand the road, do not share the risk, do not know the market, and do not carry the consequences if you remain ordinary. Your family may love you and still misread you. Your friends may like you and still need you to remain familiar. Your environment may tolerate your ambition only while it remains harmless. This is why so many men feel supported when they talk, but resisted when they change. People can tolerate your dream as long as it stays abstract. They can smile at your ambition while it costs them nothing. But the moment you begin moving seriously, the social order shifts. Your discipline becomes a mirror. Your ambition becomes a threat to the comfortable story of the group. Your improvement makes your old identity unstable. So the permission reflex must die. Do not explain what has not yet become evidence. Do not debate your future with people who only respect your past. Do not show the seed to people who only respect fruit. This is not secrecy for the sake of mystery. This is strategic silence. A seed is fragile. Fruit is undeniable. Most men expose the seed too early because they want emotional warmth around an idea that has not yet built roots. Then they are shocked when doubt, sarcasm, fear, or indifference damages their momentum. But the deeper problem is not what other people say. The deeper problem is that you still let their reaction decide your intensity. That is why the first law is not work harder. The first law is remove the need to be approved before you move. When Howard Schultz heard no from 217 people, he had every reason to convert rejection into identity. He could have said, "Nobody believes in me." He could have turned investor resistance into proof that the world was unfair. He could have used his past, growing up in public housing in Brooklyn and becoming the first in his family to graduate college, as emotional evidence that the road was too hard. But pressure did not become paralysis, it became repetition. He kept raising capital. He kept pushing the coffeehouse concept. Il Giornale opened, then acquired Starbucks in 1987 for $3.8 million. The larger Starbucks story did not begin because everyone believed early. It began because enough proof was created for belief to follow. That is the order. Weak men want belief first and proof later. Strategic men build proof first and let belief become unnecessary. John Paul DeJoria reveals the same law from a lower, harder ground. He was homeless more than once. When he started John Paul Mitchell Systems in 1980, he and Paul Mitchell had about $700. They sold shampoo door to door, salon after salon, rejection after rejection, no comfort, no luxury image, no safe appearance of success. His first proof was not a press feature, it was a sale. His first evidence was not status, it was a salon accepting the product. This matters because unsupported men often fantasize about big proof while avoiding small proof. They imagine the empire. They imagine the recognition. They imagine the moment everyone who doubted them becomes silent. But they avoid the first measurable result because it is humiliatingly close to the ground. A first client, a first offer, a first saved $1,000, a first published piece, a first project, a first testimonial, a first month of consistency, a first skill that can survive market contact. The unsupported man does not rise by being understood. He rises by creating evidence, and evidence begins smaller than the ego wants. If this kind of doctrine is the reason you are here, subscribe now, not for entertainment, but as a declaration that you are done waiting to be chosen. This channel is for men building without applause, and the work begins when you stop asking for emotional fuel. Law 2. Replace validation with evidence. Validation feels powerful because it touches the wound directly. A compliment feels like relief. A supportive message feels like oxygen. A friend saying, "I believe in you," can make you feel strong for a few hours. But validation disappears fast because it does not change your position. Evidence stays, a portfolio stays, a savings balance stays, a client result stays, a product shipped stays, a skill demonstrated stays, a body transformed through discipline stays, an audience built through repeated output stays, a system repeated until it produces results stays. Evidence is not just external proof, it is psychological armor. Because when you have evidence, you do not need to argue with doubt. You can look at the scoreboard, you can look at the work, you can look at the numbers, you can look at the finished project, you can look at the skill you did not have last year, you can look at the money you did not save before, you can look at the reputation beginning to form around repeated proof. This is how confidence is actually built. Many men think confidence comes before action. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until the fear disappears. They wait until someone important validates them. They wait until the emotional weather becomes favorable. But practical psychology points in the opposite direction. Self-efficacy is built most strongly through mastery experience, not through empty praise, not through someone telling you that you are special, not through repeating affirmations in a room while your life remains unchanged. Mastery experience means seeing yourself overcome tasks and produce results. You do not need to feel powerful first. You need to create proof that teaches your nervous system you are not helpless. This is where unsupported men must become more disciplined than supported men. If nobody believes in you, then you cannot afford vague effort. You need evidence that can be stacked. You need evidence that can be shown. You need evidence that can be measured. You need evidence that makes your private ambition visible to the external world. Most men confuse motion with evidence. Watching business videos is not evidence. Talking about your future is not evidence. Buying a course is not evidence. Writing goals in a notebook is not evidence. Feeling inspired at midnight is not evidence. Evidence is output that survives outside your emotions. A shipped offer, a closed sale, a published article, a completed project, a portfolio piece, a useful skill practiced for months, a stronger body built through repeated training, a reduced debt balance, an emergency reserve, a testimonial, a before and after result, a reputation for delivery. This is why evidence is colder than motivation. It does not care how you feel. It asks what exists because you acted. The unsupported man needs that coldness. He needs a scoreboard that cannot be negotiated with. He needs to stop using emotional exhaustion as proof that he is progressing. Pain is not proof. Effort is not proof. Pressure is not proof. Proof is what changed because you endured the pressure. And this creates a hard question. What evidence have you actually built? Not what do you intend to build. Not what do you believe you could build. Not what would you build if your family supported you, if your friends understood you, if your job gave you more time, if your childhood gave you more confidence, if your environment was better. What evidence exists now? This question cuts because it removes fantasy. It forces the man to separate being underestimated from being unproven. Maybe you are underestimated, but maybe you are also unproven. A weak man hears that as an insult. A stronger man hears it as instruction. If you are unproven, build proof. If you are invisible, create signals. If you are doubted, stop arguing and produce evidence. But there is a trap inside evidence. Some men start producing, but they produce in a life so unstable that one emergency destroys their momentum. They build a little skill, then money pressure breaks their focus. They start a project, then debt drags them back into desperation. They try to think strategically, but their life is so financially fragile that every small shock becomes a crisis. That is why the next law is not glamorous. And because it is not glamorous, it is exactly where undisciplined men avoid looking. Law 3. Build a survival base. First, the unsupported man wants to attack before he has built a base. That is why he keeps collapsing. He wants wealth before stability. He wants status before structure. He wants freedom before he has removed the traps that make him desperate. He wants to move like a king, while his life is still vulnerable to one unexpected bill, one job loss, one broken car, one emergency, one weak month, one emotional decision. This is not strategy. This is ego wearing ambition's clothing. A man with no support needs a financial floor because he has fewer cushions beneath him. If he falls, fewer people catch him. If he makes a mistake, fewer people cover the cost. If he takes a risk, fewer people understand why. That means his first form of power is not luxury, it is breathing room. You cannot think like a strategist if every emergency can destroy you. You cannot negotiate like a powerful man if you are desperate for the next paycheck. You cannot build aggressively if your life is leaking money through status purchases, debt, distraction, emotional spending, and the need to look further ahead than you really are. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau defines financial well-being around security and freedom of choice. That phrase matters. Freedom of choice. Money is not only about consumption. Money is optionality. Money is the ability to say no. Money is the ability to leave a room that insults your future. Money is the ability to refuse disrespect without immediately fearing survival. Money is the ability to choose better problems. The unsupported man must understand this earlier than everyone else. Your first financial goal is not to look rich. Your first financial goal is to stop being so easy to control. That means you cut financial leaks. You build an emergency reserve. You avoid stupid debt. You stop buying symbols of status before you own the foundation of freedom. You keep your cost of living below your ego. You protect your attention because attention is the factory where future money is produced. A desperate man cannot negotiate. He accepts bad deals. He tolerates weak rooms. He stays around disrespectful people because he cannot afford alternatives. He says yes too quickly. He underprices himself. He takes low-quality opportunities because pressure makes them look like rescue. This is how poverty becomes psychological. It does not only reduce what you can buy, it narrows what you believe you can refuse. That is why stability is not weakness. Stability is the platform for attack. The man with a survival base moves differently. He does not panic as fast. He does not beg as much. He does not tolerate as much. He does not need every opportunity to save him. He can think. He can wait. He can choose. He can say no without shaking inside. This is where many men misunderstand the millionaire mindset. They think the millionaire mindset means acting rich before they are rich. They think it means visualizing luxury, speaking abundance, showing confidence, and refusing to think small. But for an unsupported man, the first millionaire mindset is not luxury thinking. It is risk control. You build a base so you can survive long enough for skill to compound. You build reserves so emotion does not make every decision. You reduce leaks so your income becomes a weapon instead of a bucket with holes. You protect focus so your evenings are not consumed by recovery, entertainment, and the quiet shame of knowing you wasted another day. You do not need to become obsessed with fear. You need to become honest about fragility. If one emergency can destroy your progress, you are not free. If one job controls your identity, you are not free. If one person's approval controls your next move, you are not free. If one bad month turns you into a beggar, you are not free. The unsupported man must become harder to destabilize. That is the point of a survival base. But stability alone is not enough. A man can become stable and still remain replaceable. He can save money and still have no leverage. He can reduce debt and still trade his time forever. He can become disciplined and still be invisible to the market. So once the base begins forming, the next question arrives. What skill can turn your discipline into proof the market respects? Law 4. Choose one high-leverage skill. A man with no support cannot afford random ambition. He cannot afford to be kind of interested in 10 things. He cannot afford to chase every new opportunity that appears online. He cannot afford to build a personality around dreams while refusing to choose a craft. Scattered ambition is expensive for every man, but it is deadly for the unsupported man because he has less margin for wasted years. The wrong skill makes you busy. The right skill makes you verifiable. This is the filter. Can someone pay for it? Can someone measure it? Can someone compare the results before and after your work? Can it solve a painful problem? Can it travel with you if your current environment collapses? Can it become scarce through practice? Can it produce proof that other people can see? If the answer is no, be careful. You may not be building leverage. You may be decorating your identity. High-leverage skills include sales, writing, coding, design, editing, finance, operations, media, negotiation, content, and technical crafts. But the category matters less than the proof. A man can waste years studying sales without closing deals. He can call himself a writer without publishing. He can learn coding without building. He can study finance without managing money. He can consume content about negotiation while accepting every weak offer in his real life. A skill is not yours because you know about it. A skill becomes yours when it creates results under pressure. This is why unsupported men must choose a skill with market contact. You need feedback from reality. You need the friction of rejection, comparison, deadlines, client needs, audience response, financial consequence, and visible output. Without market contact, you may simply be training your fantasy. Howard Schultz had market contact. Investors said no. The concept had to survive reality. John Paul DeJoria had market contact. Salons either accepted the product or rejected it. There was no illusion there. The ground answered. That is why door-to-door selling is so psychologically brutal and so strategically valuable. It removes fantasy. It tells you whether your offer, your communication, your timing, your persistence, and your product can survive another person's indifference. Most unsupported men avoid that kind of proof because it threatens the private identity. As long as your ambition remains untested, you can imagine yourself powerful. But once you enter the market, reality begins measuring you. That measurement hurts. It can expose weak communication, weak discipline, weak skill, weak positioning, weak emotional control. But that exposure is the gift, because now you know what to fix. A man who avoids measurement stays emotionally comfortable and strategically blind. A man who enters measurement may feel humiliated at first, but he becomes dangerous because he gains information. Every rejection becomes data. Every failed offer becomes adjustment. Every weak result becomes instruction. Every small win becomes evidence. So choose one high-leverage skill and stay with it long enough to become undeniable. Not forever, not blindly, not stupidly, but long enough to escape the addiction to starting over. Many men do not lack talent. They lack accumulated proof. They restart too often. They change identities before one identity has produced market evidence. They call it exploration, but often it is fear of being measured deeply in one domain. Choose the skill. Build the repetitions, create proof. Let your work improve in public or in real conditions. Stop looking for the perfect path before you have created one visible result. The unsupported man does not need endless options. He needs one skill that can begin changing his bargaining power. But skill alone still has a problem. If nobody can see it, the world treats it as if it does not exist. Law 5. Distribute your proof publicly. This is the law silent men resist. They say, "I am building in silence." Sometimes that is discipline. Often it is fear wearing discipline's clothing. There is a difference between private preparation and invisible avoidance. Private preparation has a deadline. Invisible avoidance has an excuse. Private preparation produces evidence. Invisible avoidance protects the ego from judgment. Private preparation eventually enters the world. Invisible avoidance keeps saying, "Not yet." If you build in silence forever, the market cannot find you. People cannot trust what they cannot see. Opportunities cannot approach invisible men. Your skill may be real, but if it has no signal, the world has no reason to revise your rank. Hidden value is often treated as non-existent value. That sentence must become law in your mind. It is not enough to be useful. Your usefulness must become legible. People need to understand what you do, what problem you solve, what proof you have, what result you can create, and why your work deserves attention, trust, money, or opportunity. This is not bragging. Bragging is empty status display. Distribution is evidence made visible. Document your proof. Show case studies, publish projects, share before and after results, write essays, make videos, build offers, collect testimonials, show experiments, explain your process, build a portfolio. Share useful breakdowns. Let your work appear where the market, employers, clients, collaborators, and ambitious peers can actually see it. Most men want recognition without visibility. They want opportunities without signal. They want reputation without public evidence. They want the benefits of being known while hiding from the discomfort of being judged. That contradiction keeps them poor, ignored, and resentful. Machiavelli's law returns here with full force. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. If your appearance is unproven, your private depth will not save you. If your appearance is inconsistent, your private ambition will not save you. If your appearance is invisible, your private value will not save you. Control the signal. Show the proof. Make your value visible. This matters because reputation is not built from what you feel. Reputation is built from repeated public evidence. People begin associating you with a certain kind of result. Reliable, skilled, disciplined, useful, sharp, strategic, consistent, hard to replace, worth introducing, worth hiring, worth paying, worth watching. That association becomes an asset. At first you chase attention. Then attention begins recognizing patterns. Then patterns become trust. Then trust becomes opportunity. Then opportunity becomes leverage. But many men poison this stage with bitterness. They resent having to show proof. They think the world should just know. They think their pain should be visible. They think their effort should speak for itself. Hard work does not always speak for itself. Sometimes hard work stays hidden. Sometimes it is credited to someone else. Sometimes it is misunderstood. Sometimes it is buried inside a company, a family, a relationship, or a room that benefits from your reliability but never translates it into status. That is why you must learn to frame your work, not fake it. Frame it, not exaggerate it. Make it legible, not manipulate, communicate. A case study is framed proof. A portfolio is framed proof. A testimonial is framed proof. A project breakdown is framed proof. A measurable before and after is framed proof. A public body of work is framed proof. The unsupported man cannot afford invisible competence. He must become visible without becoming performative. This is the balance. Do not become addicted to applause. Do not post to be emotionally fed. Do not distribute proof so strangers can become your new family. Distribute because visibility turns skill into reputation. Reputation turns proof into trust. Trust turns attention into options. And options are the beginning of power. Law 6. Turn reputation into leverage. Once people can see your value, the game changes. You gain options, better jobs, better clients, better rooms, better partnerships, better pricing, more referrals, more trust, more bargaining power, more access to opportunity, more ability to leave weak situations without begging. This is leverage. Leverage is when the world starts moving toward you because you have made your usefulness visible. The unsupported man must understand that leverage is not luck. It is the result of a chain. Isolation becomes discipline. Discipline becomes skill. Skill becomes proof. Proof becomes reputation. Reputation becomes leverage. Leverage becomes money, power, and freedom. That is the chain. Break any link and the outcome weakens. If isolation does not become discipline, it becomes rumination. If discipline does not become skill, it becomes empty self-control. If skill does not become proof, it remains private potential. If proof does not become reputation, it stays isolated. If reputation does not become leverage, it becomes attention without power. And if leverage does not become freedom, then success becomes another cage. This is why the millionaire mindset is not about repeating positive phrases. It is not pretending money is already yours. It is not luxury imagery. It is not mystical attraction. It is not acting superior because you feel abandoned. The millionaire mindset is understanding how value moves through reality. Money follows value. Value follows skill. Skill becomes powerful through proof. Proof becomes leverage when distributed. Leverage creates options. Options create freedom. That is the mechanism. When you understand this, you stop worshipping support. Support becomes useful but not necessary. Approval becomes pleasant but not required. Doubt becomes information, not identity. Rejection becomes pressure, not a death sentence. Solitude becomes a factory, not a prison. This is where the payoff lands. No support is not proof that you cannot win. It is proof that you cannot afford emotional laziness. You do not have the luxury of waiting. You do not have the luxury of being inconsistent. You do not have the luxury of explaining yourself for years. You do not have the luxury of treating your wounds as a personality. You do not have the luxury of confusing pain with progress. Men with support can sometimes afford delay. Men with family money can afford mistakes. Men with networks can get second chances faster. But the unsupported man must become sharper earlier. He must build proof faster. He must learn the market sooner. He must protect his money harder. He must choose skills more carefully. He must make his work visible before resentment turns him bitter. The world does not owe him belief, but it can be forced to respect evidence. That is the cold truth. The unsupported man must become measurable. From this moment, stop calling yourself unsupported as if it is only a wound. Unsupported means unowned. No one owns your rise. No one gets credit for your discipline. No one can say they carried you. No one can claim your future if they refuse to support your becoming. But that freedom has a price. You must stop begging for emotional fuel. You must stop needing people to approve what they cannot yet see. You must stop confusing being underestimated with being proven. Because maybe you are underestimated, but maybe you are also unproven. A weaker man uses that sentence as an insult. A stronger man uses it as instruction. If you are unproven, build proof. If you are invisible, create signals. If you are broke, build a financial floor. If you are ignored, become useful. If you are replaceable, develop scarce skill. If you are doubted, stop arguing and start producing evidence. This is the identity shift. You are not a man waiting to be believed. You are a man building the evidence that makes belief irrelevant. But there is one more danger. Once a man starts building alone, he can confuse isolation with superiority. He can become cold, bitter, resentful, and socially useless. He can mistake emotional numbness for control. He can start believing that needing no one is the same as being powerful. That is not power. That is damage. Power is not being unable to connect. Power is not despising everyone who did not understand you. Power is not spending your life trying to punish the people who failed to clap. If your entire future is built around proving them wrong, they still own the center of your mind. The goal is not revenge, the goal is freedom. Build without applause, but do not become poisoned by silence. Use rejection as pressure, not as religion. Use solitude as structure, not as an excuse to decay. Use doubt as fuel for evidence, not as proof that everyone is beneath you. The unsupported man's final test is not whether he can build alone. It is whether he can build alone without becoming bitter. Because bitterness is still dependence. It means the people who refuse to believe in you are still controlling your emotional weather. It means your discipline is secretly tied to their attention. It means you did not escape the need for validation. You only turned it into hostility. A sovereign man is different. He does not need them to clap. He does not need them to suffer. He does not need them to admit they were wrong. He builds because the future demands evidence. He builds because his own respect must be earned. He builds because money gives choice. He builds because skill creates options. He builds because reputation opens doors. He builds because leverage is the language power understands. So here is your command. Kill the permission reflex. Replace validation with evidence. Build a survival base. Choose one high-leverage skill. Distribute your proof publicly. Turn reputation into leverage. And when doubt appears, do not argue with it. Outproduce it. If this hit the place you usually hide from, subscribe now and build with us. Not for noise, not for comfort. For discipline, proof, leverage, and freedom. No support is not the end of your story. It is the condition that forces your story to become measurable. Build the skill, build the proof, build the money, build the reputation. Build until disbelief becomes expensive. No support, no permission. Build anyway.